The House That Called Back by Mitchell Schneider. The first time I heard the phone ring, I was standing in my kitchen. It was 2:13 in the morning. I remember that because I had been awake for almost an hour, staring at the clock on the microwave and wondering why I couldn't fall asleep. The house was completely quiet, no TV, no music, not even the sound of the air conditioner. Then, ring. I froze. The sound came from the hallway, my old landline phone. I hadn't used that phone in years. Actually, I wasn't even sure it was connected anymore. Ring. I slowly walked into the hallway. The phone was sitting on the little table against the wall. It was an ugly beige phone that my grandmother had left behind. When she moved, I stared at it for a few seconds. Then I picked up the receiver. Hello? Nothing. I waited. Then I heard breathing, slow breathing. It sounded like someone was standing on the other end of the call with their mouth right against the microphone. Hello? The breathing stopped. Then a voice whispered, "Don't go upstairs." I immediately hung up. I stood there staring at the phone. Then I laughed. Not because it was funny. I laughed because I was nervous. Someone was probably messing with me. Maybe it was the wrong number. Maybe it was some kind of prank. I went back to my bedroom and shut the door. I was almost asleep again when my phone buzzed. A text message, unknown number. It said, "You didn't listen." I stared at the screen. Then another message appeared. "Don't go upstairs." I typed, "Who is this?" 3 dots appeared. Someone was typing. They disappeared, then appeared again. Finally a message came through. "You." I frowned. "What?" Another message appeared. "You." I put my phone down. There was no way. I told myself it was some stupid prank. I turned off my lamp. Then I heard something upstairs. A single floorboard creaked. I sat up. My bedroom was on the first floor. The second floor had been empty for months. Nobody lived up there. Nobody. I listened. Another creak, then another. Slow footsteps. Someone was walking across the upstairs hallway. I grabbed my phone. My first thought was to call the police, but before I could unlock it, the landline rang again. Ring. I stared at my bedroom door. Ring. I didn't move. Ring. Then the ringing stopped. For about 5 seconds, everything was silent. Then the phone rang again. But this time it wasn't downstairs, it was upstairs. I could hear it through the ceiling, a muffled ringing sound. I slowly got out of bed. I wasn't going upstairs. I wasn't even going to open the door. I just wanted to know if someone was actually inside the house. I walked toward my bedroom door, and then I heard my own voice from upstairs. "Hello?" I stopped breathing. It was my voice, exactly. Same tone, same way I said the word. "Hello?" The voice called again. Then it laughed. It was my laugh. I backed away from the door. My phone buzzed. Another message. "Now you know why I called?" I typed. "How do you know what I'm hearing?" The answer came instantly. "Because I'm up here." My stomach dropped. I looked at the ceiling. Then something tapped on it. 3 times. Tap, tap, tap. I didn't sleep that night. At sunrise, I finally left the house. I drove straight to my friend Daniel's apartment. The second he opened the door, he noticed something was wrong. "Dude, what happened to you?" I told him everything, the phone, the messages, the footsteps, the voice. He listened without laughing. When I finished, he stared at me. Then he asked, "Are you sure? Nobody was upstairs?" "Yes, like absolutely sure." "Daniel, I haven't been upstairs in months." He was quiet. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. "Didn't you tell me your house had an attic?" "Yeah." "And didn't you say the attic was sealed?" "Yeah." He looked at me. "Then how did something up there know your voice?" I didn't answer. We decided to go back together. In daylight, everything looked normal. Too normal. The front door was locked. The windows were shut. Nothing was missing. Nothing was broken. Daniel walked into the hallway. He pointed at the landline. "Is this the phone?" "Yeah." He picked it up. There was no dial tone. He looked at me. "That's weird." "What?" "This phone isn't connected." I stared at him. "That's impossible." He handed me the receiver. Silence. No dial tone, no static, nothing. I put it back. Then the phone rang. Daniel jumped. I almost dropped my keys. "Ring." The phone kept ringing. Daniel whispered, "Don't answer it." I nodded. The ringing stopped. Then my cell phone buzzed. A new text. "He shouldn't have come back." Daniel looked at my screen. His face changed. "What?" I showed him. He stepped backward. "Okay, what?" "We're leaving." We turned toward the front door, and then we heard a voice upstairs. Daniel's voice. Wait. We both froze. Daniel looked at me. I didn't say that. The voice upstairs spoke again. Guys, it sounded exactly like Daniel. He grabbed my arm. Don't answer. The voice became louder. Guys, come upstairs. We ran. We got outside and didn't stop until we reached the car. For the next few hours, we tried to figure out what was happening. Daniel suggested calling the phone company. I did. They checked the number. The line had been disconnected for almost 7 years. 7 years, the exact amount of time since my grandmother had moved out. I asked the technician if someone could somehow reconnect it. He said no. Then he asked me something strange. Did you recently move back into that house? Yes. There was a pause. Then you might want to leave. I asked him why. He didn't answer. He just said some houses shouldn't be reopened. Then he hung up. That evening, I went to my grandmother's old storage box. I found photographs, receipts, letters, old newspaper clippings, and then I found a photograph of the house. It was taken almost 40 years ago. My grandmother was standing in front of it. She looked young. Standing beside her was a little boy. I recognized him. It was my father. I turned the photograph over. There was writing on the back, "First night in the house." Underneath that, another sentence. He heard the phone too. My hands went cold. I searched through the box faster. Finally, I found a handwritten letter. It was from my grandmother. The letter was dated 1987. It said, "If you're reading this, then the phone has started ringing again." I stopped. I read it again. "Do not answer it after midnight. Do not go upstairs when you hear footsteps. And whatever you do, never answer a voice that sounds like you." I didn't understand. Then I noticed something else. At the bottom of the letter, my grandmother had written, "It doesn't copy people, it remembers them." I read the final line. "The house keeps every voice it hears that night." Daniel insisted I stay at his apartment. I agreed. At 2:13 in the morning, my phone rang. Not buzzed, rang. The caller ID said, "Home." I stared at it. Daniel woke up. "What is it?" I turned the screen toward him. His face went pale. "Don't answer." The phone kept ringing. Then it stopped. A voicemail appeared. I didn't open it. Neither did Daniel. Then another voicemail appeared, and another, and another. Eventually, I had 6. I finally opened the first one. At first, there was only static. Then I heard my grandmother's voice. She was crying. "Please, a pause, please don't let it hear you." The recording ended. I opened the second voicemail. My father's voice. He sounded terrified. "Don't answer the phone." The third voicemail was my voice, but I had never recorded it. "Daniel isn't here." I looked at Daniel. "What?" The voice continued. "You're alone." I dropped the phone. Daniel stood up. "Okay, we're done." "What?" "We're leaving." We grabbed our stuff and went outside, but the moment we reached the parking lot, my phone rang again. This time, the caller ID said, "Daniel." Daniel's phone was in his hand. He looked at the screen. His phone wasn't ringing. Mine was. I answered without thinking. "Hello?" Silence. Then Daniel's voice whispered through the speaker, "Run?" I looked directly at Daniel. He was standing right beside me. He hadn't said anything. The voice continued, "He's behind you." I turned around. Nobody was there. Then Daniel grabbed my shoulder. "Get in the car." We drove away. We didn't go back to the house. Not that night. Not the next morning. But 3 days later, I got another message. "You left something here." I ignored it. Another message. "You left your voice." I blocked the number. The phone immediately rang. I threw it across the room. It rang again and again. Then my voicemail notification appeared. I didn't want to listen, but eventually I did. The recording began with silence. Then I heard myself breathing. A few seconds passed. Then my voice said, "Daniel is gone." I stopped. Daniel was sitting across from me. He was alive. The recording continued. "He's been gone for 3 days." I looked at Daniel. He looked back at me. Neither of us moved. Then the recording said, "You're not talking to Daniel." The voicemail ended. Daniel stood up. Slowly. He looked confused. "What?" I backed away from him. "What are you?" His face changed, not dramatically, just slightly. His smile became too wide. His eyes stopped blinking. Then he said something in my own voice. "You shouldn't have asked." I ran. I ran out of the apartment. I didn't look back. I called the police. They searched the apartment. There was no Daniel, no sign that he'd ever been there. His phone was gone. His wallet was gone. His clothes were gone. The police asked me who Daniel was. I showed them pictures. They searched their records. They couldn't find anyone by that name. It was like he'd never existed. That was when I finally understood my grandmother's warning. The house didn't copy people. It remembered them. And once it remembered you, it can make you come back. I went to the house one final time. I know that sounds stupid, but I needed answers. The front door was unlocked. The house was dark. I walked inside. The landline was waiting in the hallway. I picked up the receiver. This time there was a dial tone. I almost dropped it. Then I heard my grandmother's voice. "You're too late," I whispered. "What do you want?" She answered. To finish the call, I heard footsteps upstairs, slow, heavy, coming toward the stairs. I backed toward the front door. Then the phone began speaking again. This time, dozens of voices came through the receiver. My father, Daniel, my grandmother, me, all speaking at once. Then they became silent. One voice remained mine. It whispered, "Come upstairs." I shook my head. No. The voice laughed. Then the lights turned on, every light in the house, at the same time. And standing at the top of the staircase was me. Not someone who looked like me. Not someone wearing my clothes. Me, same face, same clothes. Same scar on my hand. He looked down at me and smiled. Then he said, "You finally came home." I couldn't move. He walked down one step, then another. I reached for the door. It wouldn't open. He kept coming. Step, step, step. I pulled the door handle harder. Nothing. Then he stopped. He was only a few feet away. He tilted his head and whispered, "Do you remember the first night?" I shook my head. He smiled. "You were upstairs?" I stared at him. "No, you were." "No." He leaned closer. "You just don't remember." Then everything went black. When I woke up, I was lying in my bedroom. Morning sunlight was coming through the window. For a moment, I thought it had all been a nightmare. Then I heard the landline downstairs ring. I stayed still, ring. Then I heard footsteps in the hallway. Someone walked past my bedroom. I held my breath. The door slowly opened. My grandmother stood there. She looked exactly like she did in the photograph, young, healthy. She smiled and said, "Good morning." I couldn't speak. She walked into the room. Then she whispered, "You finally remembered." The phone rang again downstairs. She looked toward the hallway, then back at me. "Now it's your turn," and she disappeared. I ran downstairs. The front door was open. I ran outside. I never went back. I moved across the country, changed my number, changed my email. I even changed my name. For 6 months, nothing happened. I started believing it was over. Then, last night, at exactly 2:13 in the morning, my phone rang. The caller ID said, "Home." I stared at it. I didn't answer. The ringing stopped. A voicemail appeared. I didn't want to listen, but I did. There was silence for several seconds. Then I heard my own voice, very quietly, very close to the microphone. "Hello?" I froze. The voice whispered, "Don't go upstairs." Then there was a pause, and finally it said, "Because you're already here." I looked around my bedroom. The door was closed. The lights were off. I was completely alone. Then I heard something behind me. A floorboard creaked. I slowly turned around, and there was my old beige landline phone sitting on my bedroom table. The phone rang once. Ring. I stared at it. It rang again. Ring. Then I heard my own voice from the other side of the room. "Hello?" I didn't answer. I couldn't, because the voice spoke again. This time it wasn't coming from the phone. It was standing directly behind me. "Hello?" And then the lights went out.